got a little lucky and got transferred, and I became a chauffeur for the inspector down on the lower end of Manhattan. Covered Greenwich Village and all lower end, on the west side. And I did that for about a year and a half. Neighbor across the street, who knew me as I grew up, was offered the job. He had previously done this similar job with other inspectors. So he was offered the job, and he, at that time, was working as a detective in the local precinct. He could walk to work, walk home. So he thought, well, he was near retirement, so he'd rather spend his time doing that work than driving around the city. So he told the fellow he didn't want the job. So the fellow said, well, I'm getting desperate. He said, do you know anybody that lives in this area that could do that job? And they wanted a steady person, and they wanted a married fellow, you know, somebody that would be steady and everything like that. So my neighbor offered me. He said, well, let me ask this fellow, see if he wants the job, and he'd be a good man for the job. So he asked me, and of course, being a very short time on the police force, so I thought it was a good opportunity. It was a chauffeuring job, but the boss would spend a lot of time in the office, which would give me a lot of time to study, and also would give me the ability to see what goes on in the higher commands. So I accepted the job, and then I was assigned to the job, and it was very good. Up until the time we moved from Queens to Manhattan. And when they did that, why, it no longer became a reasonable job, because I was putting in too many hours. Because I was commuting from Manhattan to Queens to pick up the car, and then go over to the inspector's house, then pick him up, and then drive him into Manhattan. Well, the inspectors work a 10-hour day, so then you drop him off, and then you have to drop the car off, then you have to commute back into the city. Why, I was putting in 14, 15, 18 hours a day, and which was becoming no longer a reasonable job. So, and also when you drive an inspector, you got to be available. You're available right around the clock. If he has to respond to something at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're supposed to be able to get to his house so that he can get in there quickly. Well, if I live in Manhattan, I can't respond that fast. So I asked for a transfer, and then they transferred me out to Queens, out to the Maspeth Forest Hills area as a police officer. And I stayed out there for a short time, and when the transfer was put in, I had asked to have me have an assignment to Manhattan. I wanted where the action was. And the inspector said he would try to get me assigned. Well, it just so happened he couldn't get me assigned. But the deputy inspector found out that I was being assigned to Queens, so he had me sign the necessary papers so that he could get me transferred back to Manhattan. So I stayed in Maspeth only about 3.5 months, and when the next class came out of the police academy, I was transferred from Queens to Manhattan, and I went to West 30th Street, which takes in Herald Square, Times Square, and down to 27th Street on the west side.
Is that when there was the Macy's strike? You told me about.
Oh yeah. No, when I was in 106, I flew over to the Macy's strike. Yeah. And
when you were in 106, that's in Brooklyn.
No, 106 is in Queens.
Oh.
The 106, 112. Any of the 100 numbers are in Queens. The Brooklyn numbers run 70s, 80s, and 90s. The Bronx numbers run 40s and 50s. And
in Manhattan, it's all
the way up to the 30s. They don't number every number. They would use the numbers like there's a first, fourth. There used to be a first, second. And now they did away with the second. That's where the towers are now. That's in that area where the second precinct used to be. Now they got the first and the fourth. In fact, somebody just told me that the first precinct has been eliminated, and they made the 4th precinct now, and they're calling it the 1st. So they're changing things around again. But there was no 7th. There's a lot of numbers missing. It depends. All the even numbers in Manhattan are on the west side, and all the odd numbers are on the east side. It used to be. Again, they're changing.